Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Tree Actions, the Human Forestry Podcast. And with me, as always, my trusty counterpart, Tony Tressel. How you doing, Tony?
Doing well. Good day, everyone.
And we've started a slight trend in our fourth season, right?
Fourth season.
Our fourth season, and we reach out typically to acquaintances and friends within our professional realm or within the arboriculture industry. But then we realize, we know a lot of people outside of that as well, and we've started reaching out a little further beyond the arboriculture realm, and it's on that theme that we welcome Crystal to the show today. Is it Geier?
Geier, yeah.
Christal Geier, welcome, Crystal.
Thank you, welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and Crystal's a local professional that I know, and we got chatting, and I said, hey, I think you'd have some good insight to put on the show. And I do believe that you actually it was funny when I asked you about the first question that it sparked a thought for you. So without any further ado, would you share with us and our guests your first memory of connecting with a tree or trees?
Probably the first. I think there's been many. I was thinking about it last night, but the very first was I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere in Saskatchewan on a farm, and we had a tree in our front yard, and I used to love climbing this tree. But the memory actually is the fact that we had to cut down the tree, and I was so mad.
Oh,
And my family, because we had to cut down the tree, and I was so young. I don't even remember the reason as to why we had to cut down the tree. I just remember
really?
so mad.
Yeah. Well, Saskatchewan and not all of Saskatchewan, but I know people that drive through Saskatchewan think it's nothing but flatness,
Yeah.
which a lot of it is, but not all of it is. So were you in the flatter part or the
I
prairie
was in
part?
southern Saskatchewan, so
Oh, yes.
all the trees that were there were planted.
Yeah,
So
that's where I grew up too. And yeah, it's ironic that I got into trees because there's no trees really. Yeah, and it's funny too where people live where there aren't a lot of where trees aren't natural, so to speak, where you have to plant them. They seem to have a different connection to them too, or a different attachment.
yeah, maybe.
You
I
know,
just they're beautiful, and I was thinking more about like other trees, and so there was this one tree. It was a dead tree, that just happened to be kind of on the edge of the valley. And
hmm
I could just sit in the well, like, because it had eroded away a little bit, and I could basically
yeah,
sit against the tree into the cliff edge. Not that it was a cliff.
yeah,
I did grow up in Saskatchewan, so it was. And I could just sit there and just see, and just contemplate life. I guess I don't know what I did when I was that young, sitting in front of a tree,
yeah,
but I just love sitting in front of this old dead tree, leaning up against it, and just watching the world.
yeah. Trees are one of those things that I like. I call them tree bones,
Yeah,
right? Like when you have either it could be a log, it could be laying like it could have fallen, or it could be standing dead. But depending, especially when they're big and old, like they'll stay that way or be there, exist in that position for decades, right?
yeah,
Like, and they don't fall over or break down even after they've died,
no,
but they're still, there's all sorts of life living in them, and there's still a connection can be made. It's fascinating, you still have that. I heard a new take on the whole concept of trees, Tony, I've always been like I've always thought it's really cool how trees take sunlight and form form wood. Basically photosynthesis, the process of photosynthesis is lignifying cellulose, making wood. But I heard it described as they solidify or give form to energy because they take sunlight energy and carbon dioxide and they make wood.
yeah,
Which is a physical thing that in and of itself has energy. Even that dead tree, if you were to burn it, you would release one of the elemental form of fire that came from photosynthesis, right? So they harbor this and then put into physical form these energetic states, which is pretty cool. Which I think is one of their mystiques, and why even sitting against that tree like you did, contemplating whatever it was you contemplated, you were still connected to an energy source and an energy form that, even though it was dead, would have had energy in it,
Yeah.
unless because the wood has strength and it's standing. It's got energy. It isn't dead technically. One of our famous tree biologists saying, Dr. Shai would always say, he'd ask the question, "Is wood living or dead?" And the answer was yes.
And it makes sense, right? Like I absolutely love um, dead trees. I love the root system. I love
Yeah.
the beauty. They're just absolutely stunning and beautiful, even in the form of death.
Hmm.
But I do agree with you. I think there's a ton of wisdom within that tree, even though like it's not emanating like it used to be as a
Yeah.
live tree. There's just still so much wisdom within it, right? And I think it's still informing, I guess, anyone that leans against it, but also the other trees around it and through its root system and all the ways that they communicate, right? So I don't know. I just find it fascinating.
It is. It is. I agree. And and it's also, they're kind of like an antenna. And even if they're not a living antenna, they're still, that structure still is definitely doing that grounding and that, you know, uh, well, tree bathing has been a thing for a while now, and that's kind of what you were doing.
Yeah. Little did I know back in my youth, right?
Even in Saskatchewan.
Even
You know,
in
I grew up in southern Saskatchewan as well. I don't know what, like, I was near Neville. I can't remember.
Woodrow. Where's Neville? I've heard of it.
Neville is like near Pontex or
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Vanguard. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was not very far from there. So I was Woodrow, which was on Highway 13,
Okay.
and towards, so I was 45 minutes or west of Assiniboia. And
Okay.
so Pontex, yeah, Pontex is just
Yeah,
down the
yeah.
road down Highway 13.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So,
yeah,
well, we're really close.
yeah.
What I found beautiful about that area, well, growing up there, I mean, I guess I have to find beauty in it, but the valleys that did it, like there was one valley that it would take me when I was walking, and then I would bicycle, and then I would motorbike. But by walk, it would take better part of a day to go to and from. But I would hike to it, and they were like cliffs, and the eagles would nest in this valley.
Yeah.
And they were always there, and they were really steep, like cliff like dirt hills, but they weren't rock, but they were cliffs. Like if you couldn't just walk down it, you
Oh,
would
yeah, you
careen.
fall.
Yeah. And they were deep. Like this was a good 100 foot plus.
Yeah,
And but they would just appear as if out of nowhere. They
yeah.
could be all this flat, and I always, I always got upset. I still maybe do a little bit when people say, "That's just nothing but flat." But you can't see the dips, right? Because they have these, and they're massive, and they're quite treed and full of wildlife and quite beautiful, actually.
They are very beautiful. Saskatchewan is a beautiful place to grow up and a
Yeah,
beautiful place to be in. And yeah, I don't think unless you decide to go into and actually go beyond the Trans Canada Highway,
yeah,
then you get to see the beauty that's there.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It's kind of like Wyoming. Like if you just stay on the highway of Wyoming, like you pretty much there's nothing, but there's so much as well. In Montana too, because we bordered Montana. You wouldn't have been far from Montana
no, no,
when we'd go to. Yeah.
didn't travel there much.
Now,
Yeah,
yeah, it is interesting because how the gems are hidden in valleys when you're on flat land. But I think every place that is flat has those types of contours, but you can't see them like you see a hill or a mountain or.
yeah. Well, and we lived just off the creek, I guess it was, but it was the Wood River, which was, my understanding, is the windiest river in the world. And
Oh
and
wow.
so we were on the creek, the Pinto Creek, before it ran into the Wood River, and yeah, so we were kind of like a floodplain in winter time or in the spring, so there'd be a lot of water. And then, of course, it would trickle down to just a little creek. And then, yeah, it was mostly bushes along the creek's edges that could manage that kind of water. Lots of Saskatoons and things like that. But,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, I mean, most of the trees that were there were planted in my neck of the woods, anyways, because they're shelter belts to
Yeah.
create
Yeah.
protection for everything else. But I don't know, there's just something about trees. They're, I read, or I think I read somewhere, or was listening to a book that Earth is very special because it's one of the only planets in the universe that actually has trees.
Oh, wow. That could
And
be.
so, I don't know. I thought it was kind of, I'd like to believe it as truth because it is, they're just fascinating. Really.
Yeah, well, I think they are integral too. Like I think if somehow the trees were absent for some reason, that it would have a noticeable effect on not only the planet but the people that live on it. So did that, like I don't- like your transition into your profession, because it's, your profession involves energy and moving energy, and you talk about trees and energy. Have you ever, like, like, do you ever make the connection, or, it's just fascinating to me because, I mean, you're an energy mover, really. I think it would be one way to describe it, right?
I guess, yeah. Yeah, I think I liken it to just that reminder that the wisdom of, I mean, so you've got a tree, alive or unalived. There's a lot of wisdom and energy in it, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't think that's anything different than the human being. We are carrying, even though at this point in time we're living, I don't think it's the same for an unalive human, but as a tree,
Right.
but it's the wisdom that resides within. So the wisdom
Mm.
of the ages, like those cellular makeup of each individual, has the wisdom of millennia of man that have come before us and potentially will come after us, right? And so having that wisdom and touching into and connecting with that wisdom that's within, in order to help us move the energy, so to speak, or shift things, and just that intelligence and connecting to it, versus our brain, which doesn't have the same wisdom within it.
Interesting. So you're like the energy that, I guess is carried through our, is it genetics, tech, or energy, or
Well,
both?
probably a combination of both. I think it's, through our DNA that, we
Right.
carry from ancestor to ancestor. But I think it is beyond that. I think it really truly is that it's wisdom of all of humanity that resides within us, right? It's,
Right.
if you want to look at it as energy or if just DNA or whatever, it's just that I'm not really sure. I think
Yeah.
that's the question for the ages.
Well, it's interesting because the way trees are, trees are totally interconnected. They're communal, very communal,
Yeah.
and they, and there is knowledge, memories, or traits passed on through, carried through, from species to species, from the old trees to the young trees, how to deal with certain issues like diseases or insects potentially, but even not necessarily how to resist them, but how to integrate them, how they're part of the cycle, and when things become unbalanced, how they manage that, and drought, and everything else, even how they get nutrients. And, they're one of the more connected organisms, probably maybe one of the most, is particularly with fungi, which is always fascinating, right? How that communication and exchange of nutrients and minerals. I mean, that's what we biologically, and, as practitioners of people that care for trees, we look at, there's mycorrhizal relationships, fungus roots that trees get nutrients and energy from. Well, nutrients, energy comes from the photosynthate. But what about other traits that's carried over, like knowledge, if you will, plant knowledge, and how maybe similar we are in that, and how our connections carry messages, not not that they're not, maybe not even DNA, just by stories and talking and sharing like this, that creates a network and a web and an energy exchange that we've lost the ability to recognize maybe or tap into. I mean, it's getting a little weird, but like, because you were talking earlier, Tony, about sitting down at a conference that you were from a trade or an industry you're not a part of, and yet you drew something from that and then brought it over in your talks, like that kind of exchange. And I think plants do that incredibly effectively, and much more than we realize. And the power in that, and the knowledge that maybe we don't quite know how to tap into, but maybe you do more. Like it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I think though, I mean, we're all from source, if we want to look at it that way. So we all have energy. And I think that we as a human, even though we're in physical form, we are simply energy.
Right.
Our emotions are energy. So we're energy in motion. Right. So I think that the beauty of nature, period, of anything that is alive, or even though, grasses and stones, and all has energy. It's just how do we tap into that energy and help it as a whole universe, I guess, as a whole world. We can
Right.
tap into the energy and the wisdom of the trees if we wanted to. We can tap into the energy and the wisdom of the people. I just think it's just a matter of our imaginations and using it and seeing how
Yeah.
what we can gain from it. I think there's wisdom in it all.
Yeah. So interesting. Yeah. How, I guess, would you say part of what you do is help people to tap into that?
Yeah. We have, if we listen to our bodies, there's a lot of wisdom in sharing each day. Our emotions are a compass. What we feel in our heart, that joy, is a compass. Fear is a compass. They're all different things that help guide us in the world in which we live. So it's a matter of, can we listen to the information that our body is sharing with us each and every day to help
Right.
guide us? We stop listening to it when we're really young because we're told to, most commonly, right? So we're,
Yeah.
oh, don't get upset about that. That's nothing important, or this, that, or the other. But it's just information. Or you even see kids that like shy away from people. They're really tapped into their energy, and it's like, oh, that energy doesn't match mine. There's something there. But
Right.
we're like, no, 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 you give your uncle a hug kind of thing, right? And just, despite that the kid's like, no, that doesn't feel comfortable for me. But, oh, it's just your uncle, give them a hug, right? Like, so there's these energy pieces that we pick up on as kids really, really easily. And we try to trust them. But if we're told not to trust them, that they're not, that information isn't good information,
Yeah.
then we stop potentially trusting that information that we get every moment of every day.
Right.
And
Right.
so
Right. Right. Right.
now it's about, how do we come home to that information and to that wisdom within us and learn how to speak with it and dialogue with it. Like, I even teach people how to actually communicate with their body and figure out, this is your body's saying yes, this is your body saying no, this is your body saying maybe not right now, or there's not enough information for me to make a clear decision. It's really about listening to your body. And if we were to listen to our body early on and do the things that are like yes in our body and stop doing the things that are no in our body, we probably would prevent a lot of discomfort and disease and all sorts of things in our
Yeah.
body.
Right. Yeah. And it's like we're the natural intuition or, energetic voices or language that is in us all. I guess, domesticated out of us or trained out of us potentially in all sorts of ways, like from discipline to dogma, I guess
Well,
to not to
societal
use.
norms, right?
Right.
Just,
Right.
I
Well,
mean,
and then you throw a little religion in there and a little Sunday school and you throw a little uh, kindergarten,
school.
and then suddenly those voices are muted to a certain extent, or you're taught maybe not to hear them,
Yeah.
or you don't learn the language, you learn a different language.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, is like you learn a different language. But I think, I mean, from the moment kind of we are born, we're taught to give our our own power away, right? It's like, well, if something's wrong, you go to the doctor instead of, well, if something's
Yeah.
wrong, why don't we evaluate our situation and identify?
Yeah.
Like sometimes, yes, you're having a heart attack, go to the doctor.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
But there
Yeah.
are some things that we have this gut pain that we've been having for months now, and we've
Yeah.
never listened to it. And what does it mean? Oh, it always happens when this event happens. Well, maybe it has
Right.
nothing to do with something wrong in your body, but you're not paying attention to what's happening in the world around you, and you're doing something that's your body is saying, no, this isn't good for you. Maybe
It's
you need
not a
to
problem. It's
change.
not a problem. I just take Tums and it's fine.
Well, and so in my practice, you start to see where you don't listen to signs anymore. You get hit upside the head with a 2x4, right?
Yeah.
Like when you stop, when you're not listening to your own inner wisdom that's telling you this isn't good for you. I worked in the insurance industry in long-term disability for a while, and I was surprised at how many people had something happen that changed their trajectory in their life. But when you go back and ask them questions and you're sitting there and you're like, this is just a 2x4. Like, you need to smarten up and do things
Right.
different in the world. This isn't your path. You need to have something that takes you onto a new path.
Well, it's interesting too. It seems like there's more openness to this, or even more people talking about this than it used to be. Like certainly than when I grew up, I find that fascinating how that like what has made that trend occur. Like, is it just the evolution of humanity and our consciousness, or is it the fact that we live in such abundance that we can start to listen to something else instead of having to be in the field or be in the factory? Like, but it's certainly you just hear so much more about it. Maybe it's just that there's so many more avenues for communication as well, right?
Yeah, and I think too we're evolving, right? We're
Right.
we're there our frequencies are changing, where the world around us is very different. I mean, come on. The internet didn't exist when I was a kid, and now they want AI centers everywhere. Like it's just we've come
Yeah.
a long ways. We've shifted, we've changed, which means we
Yeah.
have to change and we have to start recognizing our own the world around us, but what's also happening with ourselves. And I think also people are starting to step out of that. Like, hold on, the society norms doesn't actually agree with me. I don't agree with this way of doing things. I can do things differently that is more aligned with me and how I want to be in the world. And so if we're starting to get true with ourselves instead of living the lives everyone told us that we needed to live, then maybe
Maybe
that's good.
artificial intelligence has been around a long time.
It has. It's just now that it's like, whoo, in your
Anything
face.
that when you're not listening to your own voice and and I think it is also like I like the way you said the mind and the body like there and mind and emotion like there's a there's this phrase I heard that my body is not me, it is mine. Like my mind will decide to do something that because it's uncomfortable, for example.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I'm in pain. It just means my mind doesn't like it anymore. And do I listen like that? And having some discipline around that has been something I've been trying to practice a little bit more. Like, don't just do what feels good or because sometimes you have to go through some discomfort too. But it's having the discernment or the awareness, and I think that is actually what builds resiliency and maturity. Right? Is the if you practice that, you learn to listen and learn to listen to what isn't comfortable to listen to, and learn to engage in what is good too. I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, I
The,
look at the body, like from an osteopathic perspective, we look at the body as having many layers. And so, we have a physical body, we have a fluid,
right.
emotional body, we have an electromagnetic, mental body, we have more morphogenic, spiritual body. We have all these different layers to us. And I think what the beauty of it is that all those layers do affect the other layers, but you can
Right.
influence the whole entire system through just one layer. You don't have to do all of the layers to create influence in the world or in your body.
Right.
So sometimes just shifting that energy is like, I'm going to go dance to my favorite tune for a moment, and all of a sudden your world has shifted and your world has changed, and you can impact your pain simply by doing something that you enjoy versus something that boggles or drains your energy, right? Like we're just so
Yeah.
much more than one. We're just not a physical body. So And
Yeah,
we,
yeah, like yeah, and being able to identify what that like I remember hearing a story about a person that was told very young they loved to sing, and then someone heard them, and in anger, because they were stressed or busy, made a comment about their singing, and they never sang again until like and then they ended up with throat issues and all these problems, and someone like yourself, they realized it went back to this, and it was just a child's interpretation that they've carried as
yeah,
a lesson, or they heard and they stopped, and then finding quite quickly the way out of it just by acknowledging that and recognizing it, and then sometimes it's as simple as that, not always, but it's fascinating to hear about how these things like will manifest themselves or carry through in someone's lives forever, and they don't really know where it came from or why.
yeah. Well, and I think that's the one thing too that I speak a lot about is joy, doing those things that bring you joy. And so if singing was for that individual something that brought them tremendous amount of joy, and not doing that, like joy is your heart, like that
Yeah.
is accessing that heart and that heart wisdom. And no wonder it would have throat problems, because it would close off that
Yeah.
that voice, right? And so
Exactly.
now being able to, like, she probably now sings all the time, and it's really joyful, and it brings a lot of light into her life, and makes life feel more fulfilled.
Yeah. Yeah. We're the and I don't like I think they don't necessarily even have to be as a child, but like events and situations that maybe we don't process or don't heal from, or maybe it just takes a long time to heal from too. I don't know. It's
Well, I think a
like
lot of our challenges do stem from childhood, because we are so much, like, especially from 0 to 7. And 0 to 7, our
yeah,
brain
yeah,
waves are more in a hypnotic state, so we're absorbing
yeah,
everything, and absorbing it as truth. Like, that's our world, and so it's truth, whether or not it's true or not. And so we're absorbing, and then that's how we live the life of our. That's the lens in which we live our lives through, is from that period of time where we're in that hypnotic state, absorbing it all. And so
yeah.
sometimes it does come down to those wounds from our childhood that we need to now change and shift in order to kind of recognize the limitations that were put on ourselves, or that we put on ourselves, and then be able to see those for what they are, and then be able to live through a new lens.
Yeah, and even the later in life things that we think was the reason actually have a root in those early times
Yeah.
that we don't. You must see that a lot. Like, do you ever see it where you maybe can see it in a patient, but they can't see it themselves, and it's like you try to help them see it, or or is it like must be could be a little frustrating at times, or
Well,
sad maybe.
yeah, and most of the time it's stored in the tissue. And so when you work on the tissue itself, then and release the component within the tissues, then actually the memory has a tendency to come up. I remember working with a client. She had significant leg challenges, and I started working on her legs, and I'm like, what on earth happened? Like, something really big happened here. And they're like, no, no, there was nothing happened. And as I worked on the tissue, she's like, oh my God, when I was 8 years old, I was hit by a car. Which she had, like, completely out of her memory. She didn't remember the incident at all. But once I started working on the tissue and the tissue started to release, then the memory came up. And it happens a lot. And
Yeah. I've heard
it's
that about
fascinating.
how like traumatic events, and they could be physical or emotional, even spiritual, that they'll your brain says, okay, that's enough, but your body keeps the memory, keeps the score, and it puts it somewhere, and until and that process it or whatever. Where like animals, for example, will get severely traumatized, or like a gazelle gets chased by a lion, and then they'll if they survive it, they'll shake and they'll
Yeah.
quiver, and that is actually the releasing of that trauma. Whereas humans, we've not
We're
figured
not
out or
taught.
remembered or been trained how to do it, right?
We're not taught how to do it, right? And so
Ah,
sometimes that's what we do. I do teach that, actually, is to say, like, okay, when you've got something that's really emotional, you can actually energetically release it, because you can experience it, feel it, name it, but then you can let it pass through you. You can shake it off. And I literally tell people to,
Yeah.
there's in very many traditions, there's ways, like in Qigong, there's ways of doing it. Through the Ayurvedic ways, there's different ways of actually energetically shaking it off. And so we can teach it and do it and shake it off. You see dogs and horses, they do it all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so energy in motion is emotion, right? So if we
Yeah.
can learn how to experience it, name it, and then allow it to pass through us and not carry it, then it wouldn't be stored in the tissue. But
I wonder
we're
if
never trained to do that.
no, I get it makes sense. And Tony, I wonder if that's what makes when you hear so often when you climb the tree for the first time, or you realize it's that first moment when you get yourself into a tree and you're at a height and there's energy exchange because it's not easy to do. It's effort, and there's that weird connection that people find, like, because it's a releasing type of activity. It's the work itself. Even people working out, like doing something physical, helps shake things off. But what do you think, Tony? There's something to that it's more. Like those people, those of us that find arboriculture as a passion and stick with it, despite its grueling nature of work and like stuff and chipper, like it's not easy work. And you can tell people that they can go for a week and it's like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this, like, no way. And then there's those of us that are sadistic enough that never leave. Like maybe there's some shaking off taking place. What do you think?
I think it could work both ways. I think any job that is physically demanding and mentally demanding can work both ways. I can remember early in my career, I was you weren't, if it bothered you, it's just because you weren't tough enough. That was it. That was the issue. Later in my career, I learned to listen to my body, right? And to understand. But I think the wonderful part about arboriculture is you take all the wonderful things about natural and holistic healing, from meditation to whatever you want. It was all in my workday, right? Like I was in a tree, like talk about tree bathing. I was in them, like literally, and I saw it from a different perspective, and just, I was up early getting sunlight in my eyes. I had a regular schedule, there's all those good things. It's all there if you look for it. Right. Yep. But the other side of it's there too. It is a hard job, and some days it's really hard. Right. And you don't have to get injured, but you're going to take physical bumps and bruises. It's these things are going to happen. And I think you can learn to deal with it better. I think those of us that stick with it are two types. One, you're so stubborn you could have stuck with anything, or two, you learn to adapt. Right. You learn how to take care of it. Right.
Yeah. Dwayne, you said something earlier about roots. And I think that first few years of our life, if we were, to look at it, those are our roots. Those are what helps us, dig into the ground and live. But it's how we live our lives. And so sometimes we have to grow a new root, I suppose.
Right. Yeah.
But I like that. I mean, I remember moments in my own life where I've experienced something, and so as an athlete, I found that if someone really pissed me off, I would excel. Whatever I was doing, I would be first in it regardless, because I was so pissed off and I needed to channel that energy somewhere. And it's happened a few times in my life where it's like, I remember in college, badminton. I played badminton for Mount Royal College, and we were in our playoff weekend, and I had never been placed with this other gal for women's doubles, and she was very opinionated, and I was doing everything wrong, and it just pissed me off. I never lost a match the rest of the day, and we ended up with the gold medal at the end of it. I was pissed off of climbing a mountain, and I did 2 days of climbing, working with kids in leadership. And the first day I climbed, and it felt like it took forever. And then I had a fight with my boyfriend that night. And the next day, I could climb that thing 5 times faster than I did the day before. But it's just taking that energy and translating it into something that I guess is useful, really more than anything, and letting it go in a different way, right?
Yeah. Well, you said it, energy in motion and energy flowing, and I think that in a lot of inexplicable feats of physical strength and or even mental endurance, they're attached to some event that directs or focuses that energy for some reason,
Yeah.
even in a negative way. Even someone getting desperate enough to rob a bank or rob someone, right? Like there's something facilitated that process, right?
Yeah.
And having a place to accept or understand that, I think, I don't know if it's important, but it makes life easier if you can kind of, that's where judgment really messes things up. And in fact, I think that has a lot to do with what causes some of it in the first place, right? Is the whole how you're supposed to be, what's right and what's wrong. What if there is no right or wrong, right? Whoa. Is that just a construct? But
Probably.
I think that. Well, I think within every man, woman, child, so to speak, or certainly child, like you have some concept of that. I think I don't know. Like if you left children to their own devices, would they just steal each other's food and be mean? I
No,
don't think that would happen.
I think that there was a study I think done in a schoolyard in Australia years ago, in regards to how much fighting was on the schoolyard when there was supervisors and when there were just kids. And actually, when you had just kids, no supervisors, they took care of it, and there was a lot less problem than when you had supervisors, right?
Yeah, so
I think
when I fight
if
authority, authority always wins. So that creates dissension.
But I mean, I think they do. They take care of things for themselves when they, as kids, they figure it out, and they manage versus having intervention, of what's normal or what's right or wrong. I think we are designed because kids stand for more from a place of love than they stand from a place of, it has to be done this way or that way, right? And so they find their way. I don't know.
Well, they definitely seem to be more, even if I think back, I don't know if I can think back quite that far, but you're fascinated, you're curious, you're fascinated, and you're more open to whatever. Like, someone will share something, you'll think it's the coolest thing, and you don't first, your first thought isn't, oh, that's stupid. Your first thought is, oh, that's cool, yeah. You want to be best friends?
Right.
And you just had one conversation, right?
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes that backfires on you, I suppose. But we lose that innocence or ability. I think that's what people call it, right? You lose the innocence, and innocence is lost through bad
Well,
experiences, I guess.
I don't know if it's bad experiences or but how we're taught that we have to reside in the world. I mean, there are so many rules, right? Rules, whether that's we learned that in religion or we learned that in law or whatever, of living the way, we're supposed to do things. I'm right now doing some more business education as I'm in business, and I don't do things the way traditional businesses or how we are trained to do things. I just do them my way, and then someone else on the outside is like, "Well, you don't do it that way," and I'm like, "Why not?" I don't have to just subscribe to what everyone else is doing for it to be successful. And I'm gonna fail, and I'm gonna learn, and I'm gonna do something different next time, and that's okay. But it doesn't have to be, and just being okay with doing it that way. Like I'm learning that there are more and more people now that I'm connecting with people around the world that are in business that are doing it the non-traditional way. And it's like, okay, this is awesome. You feel more comfortable because you're doing it, someone else is doing it, right? But it's doing it your way instead of having to do it the way that, you were taught that this is the way it's done. I remember working in a company that was out of Ontario. I was in Calgary at the time, and I would question so many things. I'm like, why do we do it this way? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Oh, this is how we do it in Ontario. I'm like, yeah, but but it doesn't work in Alberta. Like, just because that's how you do it in one space doesn't mean that's how you have to do it. And I think that's something we've subscribed to is this is just the way it's done. Our parents have said, oh, that's just the way you do it.
Yeah.
But why not do it differently? Find
Yeah.
our own
Well,
way.
Yeah. And yeah, just getting in a following rules or instruction. I mean, I think there's some wisdom in it at times, but it's also if you never question or you never, that's how you lose you lose your ears for your own voice, right? Your own body, your own whatever, right?
Yeah.
That whole concept of muscle testing, for example, like just where your body will tell you if this. I find that fascinating because I've had that done where is this vitamin C good for me? And either pushing on an arm or pulling fingers
Yeah.
apart or whatever. And it's weird. Like, I mean, there was the first time I ever experienced that kind of thing where you hold your arm up and you say your name is a name that isn't yours, and someone pushes it down and you can't really resist it very well, right?
Yeah.
But if you say your name is and it's true, like it's noticeably more resistive because
Yeah.
it's truth, right? And
Yeah.
like that seems, but there's a lot of like that's an example I think of the kind of thing that we've lost. Like most people think that's just a party trick and they pay no credence to it. And you can exercise that technique or that whatever, and the more you practice it and apply it to any kind of question, the better you learn what your body is actually telling you
Yeah.
versus your mind, right? Like you're connecting that. And there's a big difference there, I think.
Yeah.
Like your mind versus your body, right?
Yeah, and I teach that, but I teach a different way of doing it, and that's really learning to listen to and speak to your body. So I do it differently in my tapping
Hear,
position.
like hear it instead.
No, feel it. What is it? What is it
Ah,
in your body? Start to listen to, so you can start dialoguing with your own body without having someone muscle test you, or you can do it through various different self muscle
yeah.
techniques. But I teach it more of like you remember the moment where you had a hell no. You remember a moment where you're like, hell yeah, like let's do this, let's go. Like start to recognize how your body feels in those moments and start
Right.
to really comprehend and then learn how to speak with your body and ask it questions and get answers like, yeah, this is a good thing for me, or no, this isn't a good thing for me, or no, there's not enough information, I just need to wait. You can teach someone to listen to their body, and then you can also teach them how to dialogue so that they're following their path, what is best and the highest good for themselves, right?
Yeah.
It's wisdom, it's all in there. It's all
Yeah.
in the
Right.
cells.
Right.
It's just how
You
do
know.
you start to listen to it?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I think that's what, and I think that where it is, like it's the lost language that we have to learn to hear, and understand it. You got to listen, like you don't know the language anymore. It's Tony, it makes me think a little bit about when we teach and train her about anchoring and how, there's a technique that if when you experience something positive and you're in a happy state, that you attach some gesture or emotion to it, like, and then if you are experiencing a trauma state or a stress state or an anger state, and you do that physical action, like maybe it's a fist pump or something, your body goes, oh, this means we're happy, and it'll actually, even, hormones will be released, dopamine, and your body goes, wait a minute, and it can help change your morphology, right? Your whole
Yeah.
misdemeanor. And that's it kind of along those lines, but even deeper in the sense that, I don't know, I do more meditation than I used to, and I do different types of strength training, like pose holding, that I think has helped me become a little bit more aware of my body and my mind and how it interacts.
Yeah.
But I've got a long way to go, and I don't feel like it was ever mentored to me or anything. Sorry, Tony, I was started to ask a question, then I got off on a tangent. What do you think? Does that make sense? Like that anchoring is a similar concept where we're
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, because I mean, it's associations, right? Everything's an association. So you're using a one physical reaction to modify another. While I don't necessarily have physical gestures for my anchoring, I've learned to mentally do it sometimes.
right. So that's different again. That's deeper. Like it's not physical. It's you're hearing it or feeling it in your mind.
That's if I remember to do it. I think the prime example of that, where people would be most familiar with it, and probably what I use most often, is just breathing techniques. Right, when I start to feel myself get dysregulated or angry or something, just by altering my breathing, I can start to help affect change. Sometimes it doesn't work, and that's when I know I need to leave the room. So
But that's
it's
that's your nervous system. So what you're talking about anchoring for me is just a different terminology. I use anchoring in practice all the time when I'm working with
Yeah.
clients. I'm grounded, I'm centered, I'm anchored. Because I am the pillar to which the fulcrum to which change is elicited in the tissues with the client.
Right.
But really, it comes in that situation is also a nervous system response, because your brain is always asking, "Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe?" And when we are not safe, as in we have negative self-talk, we are in a negative situation, or our body feels like it's in fear, we're not safe, and everything tightens up. And it's our natural state of tension because we have to prepare for something. When we anchor, like what you're suggesting, or even using the breath techniques, it's a return to the body, but that's telling your brain that you're actually safe in the moment. And then things loosen, things shift. By having to leave the room, it's still not safe for you. So you've left the room, and it's like, okay, now I'm in a safe space. Now I can recenter, I can re-anchor, I can calm my nervous system down, and I can now, from a safe space, move forward, right? It's all about trying to regulate that nervous system and make sure our body recognizes we're safe in that moment. It's our job of our brain, keep us safe.
Sometimes you vote with your feet or you speak with your feet. You said something that tweaked it. I thought I lost it. It must have been either I'm scared to talk about it or I don't. What the heck was it now?
Maybe
Oh well.
the negative talk.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like that. Like how powerful and pervasive is that? Do you think? Like,
Oh,
I definitely have. I don't. Could I say a habit of it? But I don't know that I give it maybe the value it deserves. Like it's just like, oh, whatever. It's just like a saying, but maybe it has a lot more power than I realize.
well, and if you want to do an exercise with me,
Oh, here we
just
go.
yeah, super fun. But just bring your shoulders, just a shoulder shrug, and just see how in the moment it feels. And just take a note. And now say negative thoughts to yourself while you're doing it, like I'm stupid, I don't know what I'm doing, I hate myself, and notice the difference.
I don't really want to shrug when I'm saying
If
those things.
okay, now say I love you, you're amazing, you shine brightly. How much easier was that?
A little bit, but I did. That's interesting. That's fascinating.
Yeah, so it's just
I,
your brain in the moment saying, when you're thinking negative things, is like, I'm not safe. I need to protect myself. So you restrict your range of motion. Your breathing even changes, your heart rate will change. And when
yeah,
you're in
yeah, yeah.
that space of like, I am love, I am beautiful, I am, like those positive talks, our brain is feeling, okay, we're safe. And it becomes like, it feels like you're easily moving, like you're not pushing against anything in the world. It's just moving with ease, and that's your brain saying, I'm safe.
And
And
this
so
is like a almost subconscious type thing, then, isn't it?
this is your nervous system. Yeah,
Nervous system.
yeah.
So is that okay? So nervous system versus subconscious. Is that
Well, it's part of the same.
okay?
I mean, it's still all one body, right?
Yeah.
Um, but your body, I like to look at the body as a meat suit. My soul is the driver of the car, or a car. This is my vehicle. This body is my vehicle, and I am driving the car, right?
A meat
I'm not the
suit.
car, but I'm driving it. Yeah.
You're like Lady Gaga. What kind of meat suit? Well, I like the saying that we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah.
Because I do recognize, or I have some, I believe, I suppose the word is that, like I know when a person, when the soul leaves, what's left isn't really them, and wherever that goes and whatever that is, lots of people claim they know exactly what happens, and most of us have no idea. I mean, really, we
It's
think we do, but we don't know for sure. And I think that that's part of what we're talking about is I think that the veil between this dimension and the other, the spiritual realm, is a lot thinner than we think, but we've learned how not to, we don't know how to talk to it anymore. Or I don't. We don't know how to connect with it on that level. And I think for me, my learnings in religion versus spirituality affected me in having the ability to do that. And I'm trying to find my way back to that a little bit. But
But again, we are energy, and energy cannot be created nor destroyed, right? So it's after we leave this world, we just are shifting into a different energy.
yeah,
Do we
yeah,
know what that energy looks like now? Probably somewhere in our DNA, we really do. But like on this conscious level of where we are in this world at this point of time, probably most of us have no idea, and that's okay. We're supposed
yeah.
to be
Well,
living
and
for
I
today.
mean, I spent a bit of my life and a younger life for sure being told and then believing and choosing to believe, I suppose, that I knew what the way was and I knew what was going to happen. And, and that there was some fear around that and even perhaps some manipulation if I think back on it really, but not intentionally. But, that forms some pretty powerful beliefs around what you got to do to make sure you know where you're going after. And the really it's a little uncomfortable to just to ponder that maybe you don't know or maybe nobody knows for sure, even though there's some pretty influential people that maybe not in the world but within your life that really sway or their conviction is so strong that it if they can know that powerfully, is it really that real? Like I don't know if that makes sense, but it's a fine line to navigate at least.
Well, and I think if how much of it was, and just looking into childhood and how much of it is manipulation to control an outcome
Yeah,
or to control
yeah,
behavior too, right? Like sometimes you're told certain things because you don't want. I mean, I remember when Emery's young, we moved into the acreage where we live on now, and there's a pond on it, and we wanted our son not to go anywhere near the pond. So
right,
we
right.
because you just don't. It's a deep pond. You don't want him to fall in and not be able to get out again. And so, what are the stories that stories are truth, but how much do you embellish it to ensure the kid to control the behavior of not going anywhere near the water without a parent near you, right?
Yeah,
Like,
genuine safety and concern with saying like there is a really big lizard that's just the size of you in that pond.
no, I
And
didn't
if you
use
get too
that,
close
but
to it, but whatever,
the point
and then
still
whatever wisdom you would choose to use, and maybe that would not be the best way because now you got fear and all the rest. And I'm never going to water again. I don't know why I'm so scared of water. I've been my whole life. I've been really scared of ponds, particularly.
well, and it's funny. I remember going camping with friends years ago, and the one gal, she could be on the water in a boat, no problem, but she could not get into water. She couldn't see the bottom of it, and it was from an uncle years ago when she was a kid, telling her about these big monster fish in the water, and that they would bite her toes or something. And to this day, even she knows that that is an absolute lie. She still
Right.
can't get into water like that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
not possible because that trauma that was
Yeah.
ingrained in her.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
interesting how our brain works in that way to protect us. Like that is a very solid belief that the brain now holds on to as absolute truth, even though you can consciously say, this is not my truth. This isn't the way it is. But your brain is holding you hostage in that situation and you can't do it. Right?
Yeah, I think I can relate, and Tony has I'm sitting here looking at you, wondering what you must as your philosophical mind because Tony's does have a degree in philosophy, which most arborists do not, and and it's that I don't know. Are we in the realm of philosophy or spirituality, or are they different?
Oh, it depends how you define your terms. That's what a philosopher would always say. How do you define your term?
That's
That's the
not fair.
that's the one conversation we have in our household often is like you ask a question and I'm like, define what you mean by that word.
Well, you gotta have an agreement of terms, right?
Yeah.
Well, the old Dr. Shigo that I mentioned earlier, he would always say that we cannot communicate effectively until we define our terms. And it was funny. He wrote a book called Nutribiology, and then another one called Modern Arboriculture. And that particular book, there were so many things he had discovered in his research that didn't have names. That he, they kind of, he made logical names that made sense, but they didn't exist outside of that book. And upon publishing that book, but getting so many phone calls and requests for definition, he ended up having to write the Nutribiology Dictionary because the terms they weren't normal, they weren't common terms anymore, right? So that, and ever since then, he was very emphatic about that. You cannot communicate effectively until you've defined your terms. And it's kind of true, right? Because and even with the defining of terms, then there's still interpretation, which is such a fascinating thing. Like, because what I heard in this podcast, and what Tony hears, and what you hear, and then what each of our guests hears, all our listeners, like everyone hears something different. Like really,
It all depends on our roots, really.
yeah, and our perceptions and our learnings are whatever goggles you're looking through, right? It affects the tint you see it with.
Yeah, and our brains are really interesting in that way because it will hold on to things even though we know they aren't true or we get proof. We need a lot of proof to prove our beliefs as different. Like we to shift our beliefs. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so these bleeps that form typically young, and I've heard that many times. I think there's ample evidence out there to support the formative years of 0 to 7. That's quite commonly spoke of. So I don't think it really can be refuted. But how powerful those, like the lady with the fish biting her toes, like to this day maybe never will be able to rewire or change. And that'd be a hot topic because I'm sure there's lots of teachers and people, healers that would say you can change that with enough.
And you can. Yeah, for sure you can. It's just a matter of whether that individual chooses that they want. That's something that they give a shit enough about to do something about.
Well, I think that's interesting because I've had a fear of cold water particularly, and I can never lay against something cold like on my back. Like when I lay down against, like if I had on anything, it doesn't matter, tub, like I cannot touch my back particularly onto something cold. And a few years, I don't know, my mom was elderly already, and I don't know what the heck we were doing, but I had to lean back on something, and I was like, and I couldn't do it, and she started crying, right? And I was like, what? That was weird. And I was adopted, and so their first year or two, they had to bring me to the government nurse, and they had to weigh me and check me to make sure everything was okay. Well, one of my visits, and my mom recalls this vividly. I mean, she's passed away now, but I remember her telling me this. And she started crying because she said, that still bothers you. And I'm like, what? She said, you were like a year old or a year and a half, like you were very young. You were all wrapped in your blankies. You were sleeping. And she needed to weigh you. So she unwrapped you and she plopped you you were wearing nothing but a diaper, and she plopped you in this cold tray, like, the weigh scale.
Yeah.
And she said there was no blanket on it. The room was cold. And she said you let out the most blood-curdling scream because you were like, all limp and soft like a baby. And she just plumps you down on this steel tray. And you instantly, like, your whole body shook and you screamed. And she knew because it was cold. She could have just put a freaking blanket down, and she was so mad at her, right? And here I am in my 40s or whatever this was, and she'd never witnessed this before. And my wife says, oh, yeah, he can't stand leaning against anything cold. Like anything touches my back cold. And I thought, well, maybe that's where that's obviously where that reaction comes from. Clearly.
Yeah.
I had no idea. but then cold water for some reason too. And that, so when I was in Ireland a few years ago, they have the place I was staying has this cold water dip area, quite commonly known. It's called the 40-foot. And I decided, I knew I was going there, and I had time to prepare. And I was like, I'm going, because cold water, I just cannot go in cold water. I like walk in slowly and just, I can't do it. And I decided, and this is what the decision thing, I just decided I'm going to stop this. Like I'm going to, and now I can jump in cold water. I can go in cold water. I managed to break through that, but I still have a real hard time leaning against cold things.
Yeah, but that's a trauma response, right? Like for you, that was an event that your body went, no.
Yep.
And so, and it is, again, like there are moments of it that you can retrain. You've decided that's not who I am anymore, and you did something different, and your brain reacted, and it was okay.
With the water thing, yeah, but not with the leaning back thing. I have not been able to resolve that. Maybe I don't need to, but it's interesting. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Tony, do you have anything in your that you can relate back, but that you know, or have you ever discovered something like that? Because I think it is kind of an interesting discovery. You know,
I'm afraid if they take all my traumas away, I'll be like a boneless chicken. Just flop around. Be nothing left to hold me up.
define boneless.
As in having no support.
But the thing about the things that we've gone through and all the traumas we've had in our lives, there's always lessons to it, right? So we've always learned something. So as long as you can walk away with recognizing, yes, that was something that happened to me, but this is what I learned from it, versus sticking on this is what happened to me, this is what happened, and I've learned nothing from it, then you're still going to have bones.
Yeah. I agree. I was just poking fun. I learned.
I know.
It took me a while as an adult to come to those realizations, and then when I think back, one of the things that helped me realize it was right after I got out of the military. I was working, and I had this episode of it was pneumatic stress syndrome. Right, I was sitting on a tractor and I was working. I was tilling a strawberry field. And a car went by, and the sunlight glinted off its windshield. It caught out the corner of my eye. Before I even knew what was happening, like, I'm off the tractor, I'm under it, I'm hiding. It was like the glint off of a scope. And I remember vividly why I would be afraid of this. And it happened. And I got up, like, well, that was kind of weird. I thought about it for a little bit, and I moved on. And that's the difference. Every time you have a traumatic incident, your brain needs to deal with it. It's when you get stuck that it becomes a disorder.
Yeah.
Right. So trauma in itself doesn't have, there are some things that are terrible in life. I'm not saying there aren't, but all of us experience trauma. It's how you deal with it. And it took me a while to realize it doesn't matter who you are when you got knocked down. It only matters who you are when you get back up.
Yeah. And you're right. It only matters if it's stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's the difference. Like my brain needed to deal with that. Why it chose that moment. I'm lucky that, like, I had to catch the tractor. That thing. Lucky I was only tilling the field, not traveling at speed, And lucky I didn't tear up too many strawberries that I couldn't fix. But it just needed to deal with it at that point. I hadn't realized it at the time. I spent a couple of years wondering what the fuck was wrong with me, but don't we all, right?
That's how we grow, right?
Exactly, right. But
Well,
looking back on it now I can use that lesson and the other things to understand that, yeah, it's fine. It's, in those moments of our lives when it's tough and hard, it doesn't build character, it shows character.
It makes me think of, I don't know why it just popped in my head when we were talking about this, Tony, and it's woundwood, right? And getting back to the tree theme, but trees, trees produce different types of wood in there. So, like they're making wood, they store it, they lignify cellulose through photosynthesis, but some of the wood that's made is resistive to compression. So compression forces of gravity or wind. Some of it's tension, and different, like conifers and angiosperms, gymnosperms produce predominantly different types and so on. We don't need to get into the details of it, but then they also respond to wounding. So when an injury occurs, like a branch rips off in a storm, or beaver chews part of the base of the tree out and doesn't finish falling it, or another tree strikes it or whatever happens, the wood that forms around the injury is, first of all, it's separated from the wood formed at the time of injury, and then it's also the wood that forms around that injury is stronger, and it builds as much woundwood as it needs so that it no longer feels that wound or injury as a defect. So as long as that injury is, like, as the wind blows on it and that missing section of trunk, there's pressure forces felt around it. As long as it's feeling that pressure, it's going to continue to build woundwood until it doesn't feel that anymore. And then it stops. Like, it doesn't just keep, like, so it may not even completely seal over what has now become a cavity because it no longer senses it as a defect. So it isn't going to keep trying to seal it over. And it doesn't heal it because it grows new cells in new places. So it isn't actually replacing what was lost. It's just it's putting new cells in new places that are stronger than what was there before, getting it to the strength it was before, and then it goes back to normal wood making, which is quite fascinating, right? I find, and I think, like, if you think about people, like we kind of can do that too. Like we respond to the injuries, or we respond to the traumas, or we respond to the whatever they are, and produce whatever in us that makes us stronger, hopefully. And the interesting thing is it's tied to energy, because if a tree doesn't receive enough energy through photosynthese, like, let's say the damage is so devastating that most of the canopy's lost and the leaves are gone, then it can only draw on so many stored reserves until those are depleted without producing more energy. And then in which case, that's when decline could occur and the tree may ultimately fail or whatever. But the process is tied to the production and amount of available stored energy and the production of new energy, which, again, I think there's parallels with us as humans, right? You've got to feed that energy. You got to fill it. You got to do things to have good, clean energy too. You can't just, but maybe you sustain such a devastating experience that a lot of energy is lost, or it's going to take a lot of energy and time to rebuild it, right? Or replace it. Anyways,
I like that. It just,
Yeah.
you're kind of reminding me of what I find in what we call an intraosseous lesion in the bones. So it's it's an issue inside the bone. And when we look at osteopathy, the structure governs the function. So if there's any change in the structure of that in any way, then it changes the function of that tissue. So the tibia, for example, when you get, I've seen this a lot. Remember when you're a kid and you're riding a bike and you're riding so fast and then all of a sudden you slip off and then the actual pedal like jams you in the shin really hard?
No,
It creates an
you had to remind me.
It creates an interosseous lesion in the bone, and it creates, just like you were speaking about, through density, and it actually changes the texture of the bone. It becomes harder and denser. There's not as much fluid in the space, and then it actually does change the function of the tissue, and so then the rest of the body will have to adapt in some way, shape, or form for that change in function. But it does. It feels like the quality of the bone is very different. It's very strong and dense and hard, and you have to work the tissue in order to, in the bone itself, and bring back fluid into the space in order to allow that tissue to come back to its normal consistency and then regain the function of the bone. But when you were talking about how the tree is doing that, it's pretty incredible. So our body would do it, and this is the time when we often forget those things ever happen to us, because we've created this wall around it, and there's no, and then we continue on. And when you release that tissue, that's when the memory often comes up in that way. So I find it fascinating. We're so similar to trees.
A lot. I think I find it crazily similar. And the other interesting thing is, if you have multiple wounds, and that could the tree could have compartmentalized, that's the term. That's one of the terms that Shigo had to give the dictionary for. But they compartmentalized the wounds and they built the woundwood, and there's columns within the structure. But if the tree sustains years later after being completely fine and healthy, but it gets another blow from another hurricane or whatever event, then those old injuries, the decay in the the presence of decay in them and disease that started that is now walled can break through and then go in, and then the tree has to reestablish walls, and so they can come back to, if energy is depleted or if severe injuries sustained, the old injuries become an issue again, which is kind of interesting too, because these triggering events right in our lives that may be quite traumatic from a death of a loved one or something like that, may connect back to an old injury that we had dealt with and quite effectively. And then, it's not like we're failing and I thought I dealt with it, but it's like it's still there, it's not, and you maybe could, I don't know, I don't think it's a re-trauma, but it's a connecting back to those memories but having awareness around it all, I think, is the huge part of it, and being able to hear what the body's saying, like you're saying, like listening, go, oh, okay, this means this, and being able to comprehend or understand that and then respond accordingly. That's this, it's not as simple as just eating bologna sandwiches, eh? Like,
Nope.
it's the answer to everything. Just have another bologna sandwich.
But it's fascinating when you talk about trees in that way, how similar we as human. I think maybe it's just all life, right? We're more similar than we ever could imagine to everything in life.
You say it's not that simple, Dwayne, and you're correct, but it also doesn't have to be that complex either, right?
Yeah,
we have strong trees because the wind blows.
Yep.
Like it doesn't. You don't have to overcomplex it, make it too much.
Yeah, I use tree analogies actually when I talk about interosseous lesions. I look at a brand new tree and its nice green branches and how flexible they are, and then a dead tree branch. And even though there's still energy, there's still a life component to it. It's easily just snap in the wind, and that's the same with our bone structure. If it's nice and fluid, it's nice and soft and supple, and it can adapt and shift and change. And then when it gets that interosseous lesion, where it's so dense and it can't do anything, it's more like it's more fragile. Actually,
and age, like people, like as trees age, they actually get by design shorter and wider, and they produce less new living wood, but they need less support because they actually will retrench or shrink their canopy, so they have to deal with less load because they don't have as much canopy, and it's a mechanism of aging, right? Which, because I think I'm shrinking a little bit as I get older, and I know my feet are getting bigger, so I'm getting wider and thicker in some areas, and a little shorter too. Tony, you can relate to that one, right? It's the process of retrenchment. That's one.
I was going to say, it kind of all brings us back to Tony's discussion about going into another room. I think if we were to look at another, life form like a tree or a plant of some sort, or, anything, an animal, we recognize how similar we really truly are to all each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I struggle with terminal uniqueness. I like a lot of people, but the more you can find similarities in each other and in things, and look for them and actually realize how many there actually are. It makes it a lot better because it's so easy to find the differences. And but in my experience, as I've tried to open my mind more to this concept, I see there are a lot more similarities in things than differences.
Yep. If we could learn to live like trees.
Yeah. Trees like me, trees like us. That was always been kind of what spawned the quippy name of the Human Forestry podcast. Because, the more I think about it, I think there just is so many crossover similarities, and people like trees, and generally speaking, like trees, there's this a real connection that people have with trees, and it's not just unfounded. Like they they've been responsible for shelter and food and so many things for like going way back, right? And fire, without they bring the sun fire to Earth where we can utilize it to cook and to warmth ourselves, right? And that in of itself, there's nothing that does that like trees. I mean, volcanoes, but that's a little hard to. We haven't figured out how to like rub two rocks together till they start to melt. Can't really do that. I've never seen that one. There's probably the two guys that were starting fire. One was rubbing rocks and one was rubbing wood. And the guy that was rubbing the wood won out.
Oh, good.
Well, I knew it was going to be a fun conversation, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us and to share your insights with our guests. So thank you, Crystal.
It was delightful. Thank you very much, Dwayne and Tobe.